So now that the Damian Lillard domino has finally fallen, we are seeing a bunch of other things happening, and one of those was just yesterday with Jrue Holiday being traded to the Boston Celtics, which is something that a lot of people have been kind of anticipating ever since the Dame trade ever went down, and that's mainly because this is just the destination for him that made the most sense. And so yeah, Jrue Holiday is now a Boston Celtic. The Celtics trade away Malcolm Brogdon, Robert Williams, a 2024 first round pick, and a 2029 unprotected first round pick, which at this point, I don't think they're even really thinking about. The 2024 first round pick, definitely not, because this is obviously a win now move, but the 2029 unprotected first round pick is something that may come up later, but obviously not right now. We'll get to that when we get there. So with this move, it definitely seems like the Celtics obviously had the loss of Marcus Smart at the start of free agency or at the start of the offseason in their minds, because this definitely seems like a move to kind of fill some of that void. Shoot, they might have filled the entire void, because even though you can probably say that Marcus Smart is the better defender of the two at this point in their careers, even then I think that it's a toss-up depending on what defense you're actually talking about. Obviously on-ball defense, Jrue Holiday is one of the best in the business, and Marcus Smart is obviously one of the best defenders in the league. Great at taking charges, great at flopping. no way around it. But you can obviously say that between the two of them, Jrue Holiday is definitely the better offensive player. A guy that was an all-star literally last season, and is just an all-around positive on offense in terms of just scoring, shooting, playmaking. I think that the Celtics definitely did a really good job of filling the void that they left by trading Marcus Smart for Kristaps Porzingis towards the start of free agency, which is obviously an area that fans had a lot of concern about, you know, losing that important piece for your team over the last few seasons. But on the other hand, to make this happen, you gave away some more depth that you've had over the last couple seasons that have made your team what it was. Malcolm Brogdon and Robert Williams were obviously some of the best bench pieces for this team, and even though yes, they probably had concerns over the health of both of them, as they both had their fair share of injuries over the last few seasons, they were still pretty valuable in the games that they were playing. Malcolm Brogdon played 67 games last season and he won 6th man of the year. Robert Williams, obviously we know what he does, elite shot blocker, possibly on pace to win defensive player of the year in 2022 before it of course went to Marcus Smart. But again, health is obviously a big concern. So I can understand where they're coming from by trading both of them, but I still feel like they could have provided some value to this team. Now, in comparison to the value that Jrue Holiday is about to provide, I think that this is definitely a positive. But the Celtics do have some things to figure out here. Now, I recorded this video a few hours ago and I was like, basically just like, oh, why would the Celtics do this? But now, like after looking at everything to do with this trade, I feel like I'm more so on the side of the Celtics and just they have some things to fix or to work out. And the biggest thing, and the thing that it's going to be talked about for who knows how long, is the depth that they just gave away, because now the starting lineup is obviously one of the best in the league. You have Jrue Holiday at the 1, probably Jaylen Brown at the 2, Jason Tatum at the 3, Al Horford at the 4, and Kristaps Porzingis at the 5. Obviously, since Al Horford is getting older, you might want to move him to the bench, so you might want to maybe start Derek White at the 2 or someone along those lines, and then slide Jaylen over to the 3, Jason Tatum to the 4, and then keep Kristaps at the 5. It's going to be interesting to see what they do. Obviously, that lineup can change depending on who they're playing. Like in a playoff scenario, they might want to start Al Horford in that spot, but like after those 5 or 6 players, this roster is they don't have anything. And mainly where the roster gets really thin is the front court, because they have now just traded Grant Williams and Robert Williams, and obviously an aging Al Horford doesn't really help the situation. Your main front court depth next season is probably going to be a mix of O'Shea Brissett and Luke Cornett. I don't know. But the thing to also keep in mind is the fact that this isn't their final roster. Like, they can still go out and just sign another big. I know that obviously Dwight Howard was supposed to go to Golden State, but God knows what happened there. The entire team seemed like they were on board, and then the front office just said, nah, we're good. And so I think that Dwight Howard is definitely going to be one of those options that's going to be considered. Obviously, you'd be concerned about the fact that he has not played in the NBA in a few seasons, and so so that might be something to consider. But there are still some other options out there currently. You have guys like Justice Winslow who may be able to fill some of that void. Bismack Biyombo could be another really good option who can kind of, fill the same role as Dwight Howard, who is also a little younger. There are definitely options. Blake Griffin is obviously out there, although I don't think that they are going that route again, considering that they didn't re-sign him. And so there are definitely some options, but they are a little bit limited in terms of what this team actually needs. I feel like either Dwight Howard or Bismack Biyombo would be the best option to fill the Robert Williams void, but we will see what they do there. Now, in terms of the overall landscape of this team, it's definitely interesting to think about, especially next season, considering the roster turnover. But if your main core of guys is all still together, then I feel like it's just a matter of getting the new guys on board rather than just, completely reshaping things, if that makes sense. Like Jrue Holiday is going to be a player that is going to fit right in. Kristaps Porzingis, same thing. And so they have that going for them. Now, obviously, another big concern that people might have is the health of Kristaps Porzingis, and that's something that we just talked about with Robert Williams and Malcolm Brogdon. But Kristaps Porzingis has a history of injuries. We all know this. He was literally injured before training camp. Now he is good to go for training camp, but that doesn't really change my point. And so when you think about that and you consider how thin their front court depth is right now, even if they go out and sign another big, Al Horford is still gonna have a lot of responsibility if Kristaps Porzingis is going to be out, which I assume that he's going to be resting a few games here and there. And so we will see how that goes. Obviously, Al Horford, even though he's old, is still very capable, but you obviously don't want to be like overworking him at this point in his career, especially not in the regular season. But I feel like that's something that we will kind of see how it plays out when we get there. Now, in terms of expectations, it's no secret the Bucks and the Celtics are now the two best teams in the Eastern Conference. They might be the two biggest favorites to win the title, obviously other than Denver, who are looking to repeat. But with the move of going out and, acquiring Jrue Holiday, a player that Dame has historically struggled against, most notably in the 2018 playoffs, I think that it could be very interesting to see how this plays out. Now, obviously, Jrue Holiday has his own playoff struggles that kind of go under the radar at times, but even then, I don't think that it's going to be as big of a concern this season, because rather than being a second option or a third option like he was in New Orleans and Milwaukee, he's going to be probably a fourth option on this team in terms of scoring. You're going to have Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum, and Kristaps Porzingis all above you in terms of the scoring responsibility. And so I don't think that it's going to be as big of a concern this season, or as long as he's there. And so he's obviously going to be focused more on the playmaking side of things, the rebounding, and the defense, obviously. But this is interesting to see how things have turned out and how quickly things can change in the NBA. Last week, nothing meaningful had happened in the Dame saga, and now a week later, two whole teams are completely restructured. And so we will see. Preseason starts in a few days, and we will see how both of these teams look. I think it should be very interesting. And of course, the talks of them meeting in the playoffs will persist throughout the entire season. Hopefully it does happen, because that would be the matchup of the ages. But we will see. But with all that being said, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Subscribe if you're new. Hit the bell to be notified when I upload. Comment down below what you want to see next. And as always, I'll see you guys in the next one.